Hey, Caitlin, you're a pretty good basketball player, but you make it from here.
Jason, show them how you make it rain from downtown.
Can you hit it from here, Caitlin?
Oh!
You baller! Bet you can't do that, Caitlin.
Anyone else?
The question hung in the air. A playful challenge laced with the unspoken weight of an entire career, an entire movement. Hey, Caitlin, can you make it from here? It was a simple query about basketball, about range, about the physics of a leather ball arcing towards a hoop, but in the context of a Nike commercial that finally arrived on Christmas Day 2025. It echoed as something far more significant. It was a question the sports world had been asking for 2 years. Not about shooting, but about positioning, about value, about when a phenomenon would be formally anointed. For nearly 2 years, a puzzling silence emanated from the swoosh. They held the rights to the most electric, most discussed, most culturally resonant figure in women's sports, Caitlin Clark. They had signed her to a monumental 8-year, $28 million deal out of college, a figure that shattered records and headlines, and then nothing. No signature shoe. No sprawling "Just Do It" campaign featuring her logo range daggers. No merchandise flooding the shelves. The silence was so deafening it spawned its own chorus of critics. Pundits questioned Nike's commitment. Fans lamented the lack of available gear. The narrative began to crystallize. Was Nike, the titan of athletic endorsement, unsure? Were they waiting to see if the collegiate meteor would solidify into a professional star? Was the WNBA, with its historical struggles for mainstream traction, still considered too unstable a foundation for
Hey, Caitlin! Can you make it from there?
a full-scale legacy launch? This perceived hesitation became a backdrop to Clark's rookie WNBA season, a year of staggering viewership, sold-out arenas, intense scrutiny, and a mid-season injury that would, paradoxically, become the most critical data point in Nike's secret calculus. The noise from the outside suggested doubt. The reality inside Nike's strategic chambers was the absolute opposite. The silence wasn't hesitation. It was the deepest form of confidence. It was a calculated, patient, and meticulously orchestrated pause, a breath held not in anxiety, but in anticipation of the perfect moment to exhale a statement that would reshape the landscape. What unfolded was not merely the launch of a basketball shoe. It was the unveiling of a doctrine. Nike wasn't just selling a product tied to Caitlin Clark. They were institutionalizing her. They were applying the same slow burn, legacy-forging playbook once reserved for the Jordans and LeBrons of the world to a woman from Iowa. This is the story of that patience, the layers within that Christmas Day commercial, and how Nike's deliberate delay was, in fact, a masterclass in building something meant to last forever. When Caitlin Clark declared for the WNBA draft, the commercial frenzy was immediate and expected. Brands jockeyed for position, but the crown jewel, the comprehensive Nike deal featuring a signature shoe, was already secured. The number was staggering, $28 million. It was a declaration of value in pure monetary terms. And then, the market waited for the inevitable flood. It never came. While other athletes in her class had quicker, more visible rollouts, Clark's partnership with Nike remained peculiarly subdued. There was the obligatory logo reveal, the interlocking CC, which felt more like a placeholder, a cryptic sigil offered to a hungry fan base without the substantive meal of a product to hang it on. The criticism grew louder and more pointed. Nike has not done one thing to promote her, became a common refrain across sports media. Commentators contrasted her treatment with the immediate, full-throated campaigns launched for male counterparts. The narrative of neglect gained traction. To the outside observer, this was a baffling strategic blunder. Here was an athlete, who was single-handedly shattering television ratings, selling out opposing team arenas, and becoming a household name not just for sports fans, but for casual viewers drawn to her audacious style and palpable joy. The buzz was a roaring fire. Conventional marketing wisdom screamed to pour gasoline on its strike, while the iron is white hot. Yet, Nike stood by, holding a giant can of fuel, watching the flames with a calm, assessing eye. This was the first layer of their strategy, letting the cultural proof solidify independent of their marketing machinery. Nike, in its decades of building athletic deities, has learned to distinguish between hype and foundation. Hype is loud, fleeting, and often media-driven. Foundation is built on consistent, undeniable performance and cultural impact that alters behavior, what people watch, what they talk
Hey, Caitlin, how about from here?
Come on, guys.
about, what they buy tickets for. By not immediately slapping Clark's name on a shoe and flooding the market, Nike avoided the risk of tethering her long-term potential to the volatile, often overheated atmosphere of her rookie transition. They allowed her to simply be, to experience the grind of the WNBA, to face the defensive schemes designed to stop her, to navigate the intense scrutiny, and crucially, to prove that her influence was not a seasonal fad. The injury she suffered during her rookie season became the unwitting stress test of this theory. When Clark was sidelined, a measurable dip occurred. Television ratings for WNBA games, particularly those not featuring other major stars, softened. Arena buzz, where applicable, changed tenor. The league's visibility in the daily sports conversation, which had been so consistently amplified by her highlights, subtly receded. This wasn't a failure. It was a revelation. It proved a dependency. Her presence wasn't just additive, it was catalytic. Her absence created a vacuum. For Nike, this data was more valuable than any first-season sales projection. It demonstrated that Caitlin Clark had moved beyond being a popular player to becoming an essential ecosystem, a player upon whom broader interest relied. This shifted the paradigm from marketing an athlete to stewarding a pillar of the sport itself. Furthermore, the broader WNBA landscape was entering a period of significant flux. Collective bargaining agreement, CBA. Negotiations loomed on the horizon, set for 2026, promising complex discussions about revenue sharing, salaries, and travel conditions, conversations that often come with public friction and uncertainty. The league was also grappling with growing pains, balancing its explosive new popularity with infrastructure challenges and navigating the intense, sometimes divisive discourse among its fanbase. To launch a legacy product into that potential turbulence could have been risky. Why tie the flagship of your new women's basketball line to a league narrative that might, in the short term, become contentious? Nike's pause, therefore, was a hedge against chaos and a bet on clarity. They were waiting for Clark to transcend the rookie narrative, for her importance to be irrefutably quantified, even by her absence, and for the professional landscape around her to find a new, more stable equilibrium. The silence was not empty. It was pregnant with observation. Then, on Christmas Day 2025, the silence broke with the precision of a well-timed jump shot. The From Anywhere commercial did not just debut, it was placed. Its slot was as much a part of the message as the visuals themselves, nestled among the marquee broadcasts of the NFL and the NBA, on a day when American sports viewership is at its familial, captive peak. This real estate is not leased out for experiments or introductory offers. It is reserved for icons, for the stories a brand believes are central to its mythology. The mere placement was Nike's first declarative sentence: "This athlete belongs here." The commercial itself was a meticulously crafted piece of narrative archaeology and future-facing statement. On its surface, it was a fun, star-studded game of HORSE. But for those who knew how to look, and Nike knew its core audience, every frame was loaded with meaning. The most overt callback was its structural homage to one of Nike's most legendary campaigns, the 1992 HORSE duel between Michael Jordan and Larry Bird for Hanes. That spot was iconic for its simplicity and its portrayal of peerless, competitive greatness engaging in a casual, impossibly skilled showdown. By replicating that format with Caitlin Clark at its center, surrounded by a diverse cast of celebrities and athletes, Nike was performing a profound act of lineage making. They weren't saying Clark was Jordan or Bird. They were saying she operated in the same cinematic language of greatness. The confidence, the quiet smiles, the increasingly impossible shots. It was a visual vocabulary reserved for the pantheon, and they were teaching the audience to speak it in relation to her. The layers deepened. The appearance of Lisa Bluter, Clark's college coach at Iowa, was not a casual cameo. She appears at the precise 22-second mark Clark's jersey number. More significantly, she is standing on an exact, recognizable spot on what is clearly the Carver Hawkeye Arena floor. For the initiated, the realization is instant. That is the very spot from which Clark launched the three-pointer that broke the NCAA all-time scoring record. This wasn't just a nostalgic nod. It was a secret handshake with the fans who had followed the entire journey. It was Nike saying, "We remember where this started, we honor the path." It embedded history into the celebration of present fame. The celebrities chosen: the Kelsey brothers, trailblazers in football media and connectivity; Michael Cera, representing a vein of alternative, hipster cool; Travis Scott, the nexus of music, fashion, and sneaker culture, were not random. Each represented a different demographic slice that Clark's appeal had organically touched. The Kelseys connected to the heartland, sports talk energy; Cera to the younger, internet-savvy crowd; Scott to the urban, style-conscious consumer. Their collective presence, all directing the same challenge at Clark: can you make it from here? Visually mapped her cross-cultural reach. She was the singular point where these disparate worlds converged, all united by awe at her talent. And then, the slogan itself, "From Anywhere." On one level, it's a literal description of her shooting range. Logo, half court, well beyond the arc. It's a basketball truth. But the genius of the phrase is, its dual meaning, its biographical resonance. Caitlin Clark did come from anywhere. She came from West Des Moines, Iowa, a state not traditionally seen as a basketball pipeline. She chose to stay home for college at Iowa, a program without a history of national championships, building it into a national phenomenon through sheer force of will. Her path was non-traditional. Her origin story not stamped by the usual AAU power circuits. From Anywhere became a mantra of belief. It said, your circumstances do not define your ceiling. Your origin point does not limit your destination. It connected the physical act of making a deep three to the metaphorical act of making it to the pinnacle of sports from an unexpected place. The slogan sold aspiration as much as it sold athleticism. This commercial was not designed for a hard sell. You don't see the shoe prominently featured. You barely see it at all. The goal wasn't to move units in that moment. The goal was to establish status, to frame Caitlin Clark not as a talented WNBA rookie with a shoe deal, but as a cultural force whose moment of commercial recognition was an event worthy of a holiday showcase. It was about shifting the perception of what a women's basketball endorsement could be from a niche product to a mainstream spectacle. With a cultural statement made, the rationale behind Nike's patient delay comes into sharp focus. This was never about a single shoe release. It was about architecting a franchise. Nike has a long and brutal history of learning that rushed signatures can falter. A shoe tied too tightly to the hype of a rookie season can become a dated relic if that player's career plateaus or shifts. By waiting, Nike accomplished several critical strategic objectives. First, they allowed Clark's game and influence to mature and become fully defined at the professional level. The shoe that eventually comes will not be the Caitlin Clark rookie shoe. It will be the shoe of WNBA star Caitlin Clark, the one who has already adjusted, already faced adversity, already proven her drawing power is league-wide and not a novelty. The product is being built for the athlete she is now and will be for the next decade, not the phenomenon she was at 22. Second, they created manufactured scarcity in an age of overwhelming content and product drops. In a marketplace where athletes have signature lines announced seemingly monthly, The 2-year wait for Clarks created a pent-up, almost aching demand. When the shoe finally drops, the launch will be less of a sales event and more of a cultural culmination, a reward for patient fandom. This scarcity adds weight and perceived value, transforming the shoe from mere footwear into a coveted artifact of a journey fans have witnessed. Third, and most importantly, Nike used the time to build the ecosystem around the product. A signature shoe is not an isolated object. It's the centerpiece of a system that includes youth outreach, community programs, training initiatives, and global marketing plans. Rushing the shoe would have meant scrambling to build this system afterwards, often resulting in a disjointed message. By delaying the product, Nike could work in reverse. Build the platform first, the from anywhere ethos, the coaching clinics, the grassroots connections, so that when the shoe finally lands, it feels like the natural, final piece of a fully realized world. It arrives not as a question, will this work, but as an answer. Here is the tool for the journey we've already been promoting. This approach fundamentally shifts the standard for women's signature lines. Historically, even successful women's shoes have often felt like offshoots, smaller-scale projects compared to their male counterparts. By treating Clarks' line with this level of strategic patience, narrative depth, and systemic support, Nike is implicitly arguing that it deserves the same treatment as a LeBron or a KD line. It is a franchise, not a favor. This has ripple effects beyond Clark, setting a new benchmark for what every future women's athlete can and should expect from a partnership. Furthermore, Nike is anchoring its own future in women's basketball to this deliberate timeline. The WNBA's upcoming CBA negotiations and the potential for league expansion and increased media rights deals mean the business landscape is set to evolve rapidly between 2025 and 2027. By timing Clark's full commercial explosion to align with this period of potential growth and stabilization, Nike positions itself not as a bystander, but as a driver of that growth. The Clark era at Nike and the new era of the WNBA become synonymous, each lending credibility and momentum to the other. In the end, the story of Nike and Caitlin Clark is a master study in the power of timing. In a business culture obsessed with speed, viral moments, and immediate monetization, Nike exercised a radical discipline, the discipline of patience. They understood that while hype can be captured, legacy must be cultivated. Every seemingly perplexing pause now makes sense. Not launching in 2024 allowed Clark's on-court identity to solidify beyond the college three-point goddess into a complete professional point guard and leader. Enduring the criticism of inactivity allowed the public discourse to reach a fever pitch of its own accord, creating a groundswell of organic demand that no advertising budget could manufacture. Wading through the injury and the league's growing pains ensured the launch platform would be stable, not shaky. The From Anywhere commercial was the key that turned in the lock. It wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the climax of the second act, the moment where the protagonist's true identity is revealed before the final battle. It took all the scattered elements, the Iowa roots, the record-breaking shots, the cross-cultural appeal, the historical significance, and synthesized them into a single, potent brand thesis. By the time the first signature shoe finally hits retail shelves, the work of convincing the public will be long over. Nike won't need to introduce Caitlin Clark, her highlights, her records, her sold-out games, and that Christmas Day commercial will have already done that. The shoe won't need to scream for attention. It will simply step into the spotlight that has been warming up for years. It will feel inevitable, correct, like a puzzle piece snapping into a space that was visibly empty but whose shape we all intuitively knew. This is how you build more than a product. You build a pillar. You build a reference point. When historians look back at the rise of women's basketball to sustained, mainstream prominence, they will point to specific inflection points: the 1996 Olympic team, the launch of the WNBA, the 2020 Wubble season, and they will point to the Christmas Day 2025 launch of the Caitlin Clark From Anywhere campaign by Nike. Not because it was the first women's signature shoe, but because it was the first treated with the solemn, patient, and grandiose strategic weight of a male counterpart's legacy line. It was the moment the industry stopped saying women's basketball has potential and started acting like it was a foundational, permanent, and highly lucrative reality. Nike's gamble wasn't on Caitlin Clark's talent. That was a known quantity. Their gamble was on their own ability to resist the siren song of immediate gratification, to watch the wave build, and to step onto their board at the precise moment it began to crest, ensuring a ride that wouldn't end at the shoreline, but would carry them out into a new and wider ocean of possibility. The question was never, can she make it from here? The question was, is the world finally ready to see it? Nike, with punishing patience, waited until the answer was a deafening, unequivocal yes. The reverberations of this strategy are already being felt. The playbook is now written. For the next generational talent in women's basketball, or beyond, the expectations have been permanently altered. The ask is no longer just for a large check and a quick-release shoe. The ask is for a plan, for narrative architecture, for the patience to let a career breathe and define itself before a brand attempts to define it, for the courage to use silence as a statement of supreme confidence. Nike and Caitlin Clark demonstrated that in the modern sports economy, characterized by noise and fleeting trends, the most powerful asset a brand and an athlete can share is not just momentum, but timing. They proved that sometimes the boldest move is not to shout first, but to listen the longest, to watch the closest, and to speak only when your words will echo for a decade, not just a day. The storm of attention was always coming for Caitlin Clark. Nike didn't try to summon it. They simply built an ark, waited for the rains, and when they finally fell, they unveiled a vessel designed not just to float, but to sail, to explore, and to conquer entirely new worlds.